Before I start my story, please support the channel by subscribing, liking the video, and turning on post notifications. God bless you. My name is Sarah Whitmore, and in 2018, my life changed forever. I had a near-death experience that revealed things about energy, time, and the moments that shape our souls. Before this, I was a nurse, someone who spent my days caring for others, never thinking that one day I would be the one fighting for my life. It all started with a severe allergic reaction. I had always been careful about my allergies, but that day, something went terribly wrong. I was at a small cafe, eating a salad I had ordered many times before. Suddenly, my throat started tightening. My chest felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible force. Panic set in. I reached for my EpiPen, my hands shaking as I injected myself. But the relief was only temporary. My breathing was still labored, my vision blurry. I knew I had to get to the hospital, fast. By the time I arrived at the ER, I could barely speak. My voice was weak, my breath shallow. I managed to whisper, "allergic reaction," as I placed the empty EpiPen on the counter. The nurse looked at me with confusion. "If you already took the shot, why are you here?" "Shh," she asked. I wanted to explain that the reaction wasn't stopping, that I needed more medical help, but I couldn't. I was running out of air. She rolled me down a hallway in a wheelchair and left me there, alone. I was tucked away in a part of the hospital where no one could see me. My body was shutting down, my lungs tightening. I reached for my second EpiPen and injected it, praying it would hold me over until someone found me. Then it happened. The last thing I remember was a doctor rushing towards me, shouting something to the nurses. I heard my husband's voice, filled with fear, demanding they do something. But their voices faded into the distance. Everything around me became hazy, like I was falling into a deep tunnel. And then, I was gone. I found myself floating above my body, looking down at the hospital bed. I saw the doctors working frantically. I saw my husband, his hands gripping the side of the bed, his face filled with pain. But I didn't recognize myself. I remember staring at the woman on the bed and thinking, "She's in bad shape. I hope she makes it." It took me a moment to realize that was me. I watched as my body lay lifeless. The machines beeped. The nurses moved quickly, trying to bring me back. But I felt no attachment to that body anymore. I felt free. Then everything shifted. I was no longer in the hospital. I was in a place of pure darkness. It wasn't just the absence of light, it was nothingness itself. I couldn't tell if I was standing or floating. I couldn't tell if the space around me was vast or if I was trapped in a tiny void. I was alone. Panic surged through me. Where am I? What is this place? Am I dead? I tried to move, but my body, if I even had one, wouldn't respond. My breath was shallow, almost like I was suffocating. Was this hell? A prison? The silence was overwhelming. No sounds, no voices, just the weight of endless emptiness. And then, a terrifying thought entered my mind. What if I never existed? Time felt meaningless here. Minutes felt like years. Had I been here for hours, days, centuries? I started questioning everything. Was my life just a dream? Had I imagined my family, my work, my struggles? Was this where I had always been, lost in eternal darkness? Just as despair started to consume me, I had a sudden instinct, a voice inside urging me to lean forward. I wasn't sure what it meant, but I obeyed. I shifted forward, not bending at the waist, but moving like I was weightless. And suddenly, I was moving. For the first time, I had control. Far off in the distance, I saw something. A faint light, hope. I turned toward it and felt myself rushing forward at an impossible speed. The darkness around me remained, but the light grew larger, closer. Was I escaping? As I reached the edge of the darkness, I realized there was a barrier, a thin veil separating me from the world beyond. I pressed against it, desperate to break through. And then I saw something. I was back in the hospital room. I was hovering just beyond the barrier, looking at my own body lying motionless in the hospital bed. But I wasn't alone. My daughter was there. She stood near the bed, her face pale, her eyes filled with fear. She was gripping the side of the hospital bed so tightly that her knuckles were turning white. I looked at her clothes, a wrinkled flannel shirt, completely out of place for the summer. I knew that shirt. She had worn it before. I focused harder. I could feel her emotions. her pain, her fear, her love for me. It wasn't just empathy. I was inside her thoughts. She was thinking, "Mom, please don't go. I need you." Tears filled my eyes. I reached out, desperate to hold her, to reassure her that I was still here. But the moment my hands touched the invisible wall, I was thrown back into the darkness. I screamed, "No, let me go back." But I was trapped again, alone in the void. Then I heard a voice. A presence filled the darkness, and it wasn't human. It was something greater, and it spoke a truth that shook my soul. "You made this place." I was standing before the presence of God, overwhelmed by His radiance, His power, and His love. There are no words in any language that can describe what it feels like to stand before the one who created everything. It wasn't just light, it was life itself, and I could feel it moving through me, filling me with understanding. As I stood there, my entire existence felt exposed. Not in a shameful way, but in a way that made me realize that nothing is ever hidden. Every thought I had ever had, every word I had ever spoken, every action I had ever taken, it was all right there, laid out before Him like an open book. There were no excuses, no explanations, just truth. And then He began to show me my life. I was expecting a life review in the way many near-death experiences describe it, as if I would see all the major events of my life play out before me. But what happened was something far more profound. Instead of just seeing events, I was feeling them. I wasn't just an observer. I was inside every moment, experiencing not just my own emotions, but the emotions of everyone I had ever interacted with. Every time I had shown kindness, I felt the warmth it had created in the hearts of others. Every time I had hurt someone, even unintentionally, I felt their pain as if it were my own. One particular moment stood out. I saw myself walking past a coworker in the hospital. She had always been quiet, and I never really thought much about her. She had been struggling with something, but I was too busy to ask. I was tired, I had my own problems, and I just assumed she would be fine. But in this review, I saw what I had missed. I felt her pain, the crushing loneliness, the overwhelming sense that no one cared about her. And I saw how that one small moment, that one missed opportunity, could have changed everything. If I had just stopped, looked her in the eyes, and asked how she was doing, really asked, it could have been the lifeline she needed. Tears streamed down my face. I had no idea how much power my presence had, how much power all of us have in the simplest of moments. God wasn't condemning me. He wasn't punishing me. He was teaching me. Then, God showed me something that changed everything I thought I knew about life. He showed me energy. I saw how every word, every action, even every thought carried energy, an actual force that moved into the world and affected everything around it. When we speak words of kindness, they don't just disappear. They move like ripples in a pond, touching people, shifting reality, and creating change in ways we can't even comprehend. But when we speak words of anger, hate, or negativity, those also go out into the world like a poison. They settle into the hearts and minds of others, affecting them in ways we don't see. I was shown that every moment of our lives, we are creating something. We are either creating love, peace, and healing, or we are creating pain, fear, and destruction. And the most powerful energy of all, the one thing that transcends everything, is love. Not love in the romantic sense, but divine love. The kind of love that heals wounds, breaks chains, and brings light into the darkest places. God then showed me what happens when people pass on from this world. Many people assume that when we die, we just cease to exist or that we go to some far-off place. But I was shown that we don't go anywhere. We simply transition. The layers of existence. God showed me the different layers of existence. The physical world we live in is just one layer, but there are others, realms of light and realms of darkness. The realm of light was beautiful beyond description. It was filled with beings of pure love and joy. In this place, there was no fear, no pain, no suffering, only complete peace. It was like stepping into the very heart of God's love. But then I was shown another realm, a realm of darkness. I was taken back to the place where I had first awakened after I died, the black void where I felt trapped, unable to move. And I realized something terrifying. That place was not a punishment. It was a reflection. The darkness wasn't something that had been inflicted upon me. It was something I had created. It was the manifestation of my own isolation, my own fears, my own unwillingness to open my heart to others. And then I understood. When we die, we don't just suddenly become different people. We remain who we were. If we lived a life of love, kindness, and connection, we are drawn into the realm of light. But if we lived in fear, anger, and isolation, we find ourselves in a place that reflects those choices. There is no judgment in the way we often think of it. God isn't standing there handing out sentences. We are simply drawn to the energy we have cultivated throughout our lives. At that moment, I understood the truth. Heaven and hell are not places we are sent to. They are places we create. The power of moments. Then, I was brought back to my life review, and God showed me something that shattered my understanding of time. I had always thought of life as a series of events, one thing happening after another, but I was shown that every moment exists all at once. It was as if my entire life was a vast web, with every decision, every action, every thought connecting to something else. And then I saw something even more incredible. I saw how the moments of love and kindness I had given to others had continued to grow, spreading far beyond what I had ever imagined. I saw a patient I had comforted in the hospital, how a simple touch on their hand, a kind word, had given them hope. And that hope led them to comfort someone else. And that person, in turn, passed it on. It was like a chain reaction of love, moving through time, changing lives I had never even met. But I also saw the opposite. I saw the moments where I had been too busy, too tired, too self-absorbed to show love. And I saw how those moments had rippled outward as well. How my silence, my indifference, had left wounds in ways I never realized. At that moment, I understood something profound. Nothing is small. Every moment matters. Every choice matters. Every word we speak, every action we take, it all creates something. And what we create stays with us, shaping our souls and determining the world we leave behind. God then spoke again, and his words burned into my soul. You are a creator. What will you create? I was overwhelmed. I had never thought of myself that way before, but I saw the truth in his words. We are all creators, shaping our reality through the energy we put into the world. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the vision started to fade. I could feel something pulling me back toward my body, back toward the hospital, back toward the life I had left behind. I didn't want to go. I wanted to stay in that place of light, that place of truth. But I knew I had been given this understanding for a reason. And as the light faded, I heard God's voice one last time. Remember. And then I was falling. Everything went dark, and I woke up. When I woke up, it felt like I'd been ripped from eternity and thrown back into a fragile, broken shell. My body was weak. My chest burned with pain. The sterile scent of the hospital filled my lungs as I gasped for air. At first, I thought it had all been a dream. A vivid, terrifying, yet beautiful hallucination. But then I felt something different. Something had changed. I could still feel it. The presence of God. The knowledge he had given me wasn't fading like a dream would. It was as real as the heartbeat pounding in my chest. My mind was overwhelmed, my emotions in chaos. I had just stood before the creator of all things, been shown the deepest truths of existence, and now I was back in this broken world. I wanted to cry, but no tears would come. And then I heard a voice, but it wasn't God's. The other side knew I had returned. As I lay in that hospital bed, I became aware of something else, something watching me. At first, I thought it was just my mind playing tricks on me. The room was dimly lit and everything seemed normal, but deep inside I could feel it, something unnatural lurking in the shadows. Then I heard it, a whisper. It was low, guttural, and filled with malice. It wasn't an actual voice, but more like a presence pressing against my soul. You should have stayed dead. A chill ran down my spine. I turned my head slowly, scanning the hospital room, but nothing was there. Yet I could feel it. Something in the air had changed, like a weight pressing down on me. I tried to move, but my body felt paralyzed. My chest tightened as an overwhelming sense of dread took hold of me. Then I saw it. In the corner of the room, where the light barely reached, something shifted. A darkness darker than the night itself. It wasn't a shadow, it was something alive. Watching, waiting. I couldn't breathe. I had just stood in the presence of God, bathed in his light, filled with his truth. So why was I now feeling the presence of something so evil? And then I understood. The enemy had been watching. It knew where I had been. It knew what I had seen. And it did not want me to share it. The battle for my soul. The whispers grew louder, circling around me, filling my mind with doubt and fear. You think you saw the truth? You were deceived. You belong to us. A suffocating darkness wrapped around me, draining my strength. My heart pounded as I felt myself sinking, back into that void I had seen before, back into the cold nothingness. I tried to cry out to God, but my voice wouldn't come. I was slipping away. But then, a name rose in my spirit, a name that burned like fire, a name that sent a shockwave through the darkness. Jesus. The moment I called on his name, everything changed. A blinding light erupted from within me, pushing back the darkness like a tidal wave. The whispers turned into screams, horrible, inhuman screeches that echoed through the room. The shadow in the corner writhed in agony, its form twisting and contorting before vanishing into nothingness. And just like that, it was gone. The weight lifted. The air became clear again. I gasped for breath, my body trembling, my soul still shaking from the encounter. I knew then that I had brought something back from the other side. I had seen the truth, and the enemy knew it. The world felt different. Over the next few days, as I recovered in the hospital, I began to notice something strange. The world felt different. I could feel the energy of people around me, the weight of their burdens, the hidden pain in their eyes, the silent cries for help that no one else seemed to hear. I could see the unseen, not with my physical eyes, but with something deeper. I could sense the battle taking place in the spiritual realm, the war between light and darkness happening all around us, yet invisible to most. And I realized that this was why the enemy had tried to stop me. Because now, I knew the truth. The truth they don't want you to know. We are not just physical beings. We are spiritual. Every moment of our lives, we are surrounded by forces we cannot see. Angels fighting for us, demons trying to pull us into darkness. The world we live in is not just flesh and blood, but a battlefield of souls. And the greatest weapon we have is love. Not the weak, superficial love the world talks about, but the powerful, consuming, divine love that comes from God. The enemy thrives on fear, division, and hatred, because those things keep us weak, keep us distracted, keep us from realizing the truth of who we are. But when we choose love, when we choose truth, when we choose to walk in the light of God, nothing can stop us, not even death. The mission God gave me, as I lay in that hospital bed, still processing everything, I heard God's voice one last time. It was soft but powerful, filling every part of my being. Tell them, and I knew what he meant. He wanted me to share what I had seen, what I had learned, what the enemy didn't want the world to know, because time is running out. We don't have forever to choose sides. Every moment, every choice, every action is leading us either closer to the light or deeper into the darkness. The question is, which side are you on? After leaving the hospital, I couldn't return to life as it was before. Everything had changed. I had stood in the presence of God. I had been given knowledge that shattered everything I thought I knew. I had seen the battle raging in the unseen realm. And now, I was responsible for it. Because once you know the truth, you can't ignore it. You can't pretend you didn't see. And you definitely can't stay silent. But silence is exactly what the enemy wanted from me. The attacks began. From the moment I stepped outside those hospital doors, I felt the weight of a new battle pressing down on me. It started small. Strange nightmares, shadows flickering in the corners of my vision, a suffocating sense of dread that would wash over me at random moments. But then it got worse. Every time I tried to share my testimony, something would happen. Phones would glitch. Messages would disappear. My own voice would falter, as if something was choking the words before they could escape my lips. And then, the people around me started to change. Friends I had known for years suddenly turned against me. They mocked me, called me crazy, said I was imagining things. Family members who once supported me now looked at me with doubt, whispering behind my back. I was being isolated, cut off. The enemy was trying to silence me because the truth I carried was dangerous. The vision in the night. One night, as I lay in bed, exhausted from the constant attacks, I cried out to God, "Lord, why is this happening?" Why did you send me back if no one will believe me?" Silence filled the room. And then, I was no longer in my bed. I was somewhere else. I found myself standing on the edge of a vast battlefield. But it wasn't like any war I had ever seen. On one side, there was light, brighter than the sun, radiating with power and glory. I saw figures standing in shining armor, holding swords of fire. Their faces were filled with purpose, their eyes locked on the battle ahead. On the other side, darkness. A swirling abyss of shadows, twisted creatures with hollow eyes and gaping mouths. The air around them was thick with hatred, an overwhelming sense of despair. And between them, humanity. People stood in the middle of the battlefield, oblivious to the war happening around them. Some were laughing, lost in entertainment. Others were arguing, filled with pride and anger. But most of them were asleep, spiritually asleep. They didn't even know they were standing on a battlefield. And as I watched, the darkness crept closer, slowly consuming them. Then I heard a voice, "Wake them up." And suddenly, I was back in my room, gasping for breath. The final warning. God had given me my answer. This world is caught in the middle of a war between light and darkness, good and evil, heaven and hell. And most people have no idea. They think life is just about surviving, making money, having fun, but they don't realize that eternity is at stake. And the enemy's greatest trick is keeping people asleep, distracted, blind. Because if you don't know you're in a war, you won't fight back. If you don't know the truth, you won't seek salvation. And if you don't realize how much God loves you, you'll never know the power you have in Him. That's why the enemy tried to silence me. That's why the attacks came. Because if people wake up, if they truly see the battle around them, then the enemy loses power. My message to you, if you're listening to this right now, it's not by accident. God is calling you to wake up, to see past the distractions, to open your spiritual eyes, to recognize the war that's raging for your soul. Jesus is the only way. The world will try to offer you empty pleasures, false truths, and temporary happiness. But in the end, none of it will save you. Only Jesus can. He is calling you right now. The question is, will you answer? Final words. After my experience, I can never be the same. I don't know why God chose to bring me back. I don't know why He let me see what I saw. But I know this. I will not stay silent. The enemy will try to stop me. The world will try to mock me. But I have seen the truth, and the truth is worth everything, even my life. So if you've made it this far, I ask one thing. Don't let this message die with you. Share it. Wake others up, because time is running out. And soon, everyone will have to choose light or darkness, truth or deception, life or death. What will you choose? If this message spoke to you, share it, subscribe, and turn on notifications. There's more to come. May God bless you and keep you in His light. Stop